Hello again, it's Garson, and this is the Knife of the Undermountain. So, the Knife under the Undermountain, and even the new Shadow Blade, where I guess, it's been in the game, but now it's a spell. The new Shadow Blade, if we upcast this, if we create it, whatever we do. If you summon the Shadow Blade, you get an effect called the Shadow Blade, you see here. So, you have advantage on attack rolls against lightly or heavily obscured targets when using this blade, and this Knife of the Undermountain also has the same effect. So don't get these confused. We're here to talk about this quick little update with patch 8. Now that this is actually working and fixed, thanks to the patch 8 update, whenever it gets released, I figured I'd share this with you because we're doing an all Warlocks run, all Warlocks, in Honor Mode on stream, and something I've grown really used to and really love, I want to share with you. Check this out. You may be thinking, oh, if I attack someone who's in the shadows, I can get advantage, right? So, in fact, if you attack somebody who's in the shadows, right, with any kind of an attack roll, you get advantage. So that's actually kind of crazy. So maybe if I can get Cuthbert and Aronson over here in the shadows, I can actually get some advantage, right? So let's piss them off and get into it. Here we go.
Witnessed assault.
Okay, so let's go ahead and see if they can come to me. Come on over. He's still in the light. He's in the shadows now, I think. And Aronson, he took a hit. He's still in the light. Oh no, shield. Haha. There he is. He's in the shadows now. So what we'll do is we'll get out of this way. There we go. Aha. So again, the blade gets advantage, right? So if they're out of the shadows, like they're not obscured, and you can check with your little hiding settings here, see? Full sunlight. Otherwise, if they're even just lightly obscured, like the shadow here, or in the Underdark or darker areas like Sharn Temple, check this out. It doesn't have to be the actual weapon itself. Advantage. Oh, an advantage, of course, means higher crit potential, right? So, of course, I could have advantage on my offhand shot, my offhand dagger, but I would need to get him into the shadows, right? So I'm going to reload this, going to pop out some notes. This is going to be a nice quick video, little PSA, if you will. The Shadow Blade, the effect, not the actual weapon. We talked about that. Okay, so, but a big thank you. We're getting back into some videos, my usual daily pattern, so I really appreciate you guys sticking out with me, especially on the stream. And we'll talk more about that later, but for now, real quick, if you want to follow along or there's specific topics, you can just skip around. But really, if you really want to support the channel, I'd really appreciate it if you just watch the whole video. I promise won't be too long, and you'll find out something really useful when patch 8 drops, okay? So patch 8 is the new upcoming patch with all the new subclasses and whatnot. I know it's been a while, so I really hope this comes out. I've already played 4 runs on stream for you guys to see the new subclasses and some multi-classing, so I don't know when this is coming out, but I think it's just about there. I don't have the actual release date, and there is a Blade Song issue, the new Blade Singer Wizard, so I think that's what's kind of holding it up, among other things. But there's going to be new co-op with crossplay features, so I think that was also a big part of it. Now, I do have playlists of seeing all the new subclasses, so if you actually want to see these things in action, right now we're playing all Warlocks, including the new Hexblade, but I've already played every new subclass on stream if you want to check them out. And I'm going to get back to doing daily videos where I can answer your questions and just go over really cool features of the game, among other things, okay? So, Shadow Blade is now fixed. If you didn't know about it, it works now. And why is that so important? Because Shadow Blade, other than the actual Shadow Blade spell and weapon, is a condition. And like I said, let's take a look at it in game. If we hover over the Knife of the Undermountain, it is the Shadow Blade effect, and of course the Shadow Blade itself has this effect as well, right? So both of these weapons come with what's called Shadow Blade. This weapon, there's 2 weapons, the only 2 weapons that have it, right? Shadow Blade, which is now a spell, or the ring you can get in Act 2, and Knife of the Undermountain, which you can also get in Act 2. This gives advantage on any kind of attack rolls, but the target must be obscured, whether it's lightly or fully obscured. Of course, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm saying if you're in dark or somewhat ill-lit areas like the shadow, even the shadow means the difference between advantage and not advantage. See how there's just the shadow from the cart, right? Versus say Cuthbert and this gentleman here. And it doesn't have to be the weapon itself. any of this. Now, I don't know if this is going to change. Usually I say this is the stress test, things are subject to change. But if it doesn't, why is this important? Because advantage is really good. Any attack roll rather than just the weapons attack roll or the Shadow Blades attack roll. So that means your spell attacks, your ranged attacks, your offhand attacks, if you're using like a caster. We'll go over these use cases, right? But you can obviously tell this is really applicable to anything that has an attack roll, right? And this also bumps up your accuracy a pretty good amount. Since I'm using, say, the Knife of the Undermountain, it's going off of my dexterity. I don't really have a lot. It's a +2 bonus. So if I actually look at this, it says I have a +14. It must be because I have, is it factoring in anything other than dexterity? Favorable beginnings. This is really just a one-time thing per encounter. Proficiency bonus, right? But I'm still not like big on dexterity, right? I'm a warlock. So even with this, I have a 95% chance. Even if you raise your attack as much as you can, advantage can push it to the utter limit where it's almost impossible to miss with a 99%. It's like a 1 in 400 or something chance, okay? So that's why it's really important, and it's when it's more applicable than just the weapon, I figured this was something really important to share, right? And Obscured is actually really easy to force or just naturally, it's pretty naturally comes into play. Again, a mere shadow like this makes the difference between a 95 or an 85 versus a 99, right? Okay. And then that means you can take more powerful stuff like the Spellmite Gloves, take the effect here and turn it on or off, right? So when I turn on the Spellmite Gloves or say Great Weapon Master, right? It's going to take my accuracy from 95%. I turn it on for more damage. I lose the whole 10%. But if I were to target with advantage, it's still near impossible to miss, okay? So that's pretty crazy. So there's also spells like Fog and Darkness. Now, usually you can already get a powerful combo of, say, Darkness, the spell here. I'm talking about the big darkness cloud. If you're a warlock or a shadow magic, right, you have devil sight, you can still see in it, and you can usually get advantage that way. But if you're not able to run this spell, or you don't have the resources because you ran out of warlock spell slots and so on and so forth, or just naturally just running through the game and not really like just fire and forget, this effect is really going to help you, right? So you can force it with maybe Fog or Darkness, but I gotta say, while running this warlock, all warlocks run, I'm so surprised that 2 of my characters are using the Shadow Blade effect on their weapons, and their Eldritch Blasts are just constantly hitting just because my enemies are naturally in dark areas, right? And then the advantage allows not only higher accuracy, but better odds to critically hitting, right? So let's look at it really quickly. If I had to hit somebody with a critical hit, right? Basically, whenever you roll attack roll, you have the attack roll and the bonuses, but you initially roll a d20. So if you're rolling 2 d20s, there's 2 chances to hit a critical hit, which is a 20. And if you can lower that critical hit threshold, like say Knife of the Undermountain's other effect, Organ Rearranger, you can bring it down to 19 and 20 rather than just 20. So if you're getting 2 chances to roll a dice and you get advantage, meaning you take the higher of the 2, if one rolled a 20, you take that and you crit, even if the other one rolled, say, a 1 or a 2, right? So that is also really powerful. So what are some of the use cases we can use here, just as a quick aside, right? Shadow Blade and Knife of the Undermountain, just in a little more detail before I go over use cases. If you're actually looking at the properties of the weapons themselves, well, Shadow Blade in patch 8 is now a spell you can get on not only level 3 Wizard, Sorcerer, and Warlocks. I have a Warlock here, so I'm going to naturally just automatically upcast it to level 5 spell slot, which means it's as strong as it's going to get. Realistically, a 4d8 is pretty crazy, has the Shadow Blade effect, right? But even on Eldritch Knights at level 8 and Arcane Tricksters at level 7, no multi-classing for these guys, they can still get it. And this is obviously a very powerful weapon because it's great as a main hand or an offhand, right? I'm going to go over some use cases, but it can be upcasted instead of 2d8, which is what it starts out as. If you use higher spell slots and go to 3d8 or even 4d8 at level 5 spell slots, right? There's no more concentration, at least on the version that is the Shadow Blade spell, maybe not the ring you get from Arabella, okay? And you can later double up psychic damage using the Resonance Stone, but I've covered that a lot in previous videos. Sneak Attack loves this thing. I mean, really, if you like to attack a lot, you love this thing. If you like sneak attack, you love this thing. Because sneak attack is actually going to borrow the psychic damage, and then all the sneak attack damage also becomes psychic damage, and therefore can be doubled up, right? Because of the resonance stone. And you don't need any proficiency with either of these weapons, especially the Shadow Blade. It's still considered a finesse weapon, so it uses dexterity or strength. It's still a light weapon, so you could dual wield it. It's considered a short sword, but it's psychic damage. You know, this thing is really crazy. Everybody's gonna love playing this, especially I think Eldritch Knights and Arcane Tricksters really got a power boost thanks to this thing. Let's look at the Knife of the Undermountain really quickly. This is something you can get pretty early in Act 2. So whereas the Shadow Blade, you can get it by level 3 is all that really matters, or with these subclasses, level 7 and 8, right? With Knife of the Undermountain, you just get it at a certain point in the game. We call it Act 1.5, but technically it is part of Act 1, right? It's the Kresh vendor. She sells you this as well as the Dexterity Gloves and some other really good items. But this thing's already really popular for its ability to lower your crit range and just being a pretty good +2 weapon early on, right? So around level 3 or 5, you can get this thing. It is a piercing weapon, which by Act 3 you could get the Ballast Armor and double damage that as well as the Shadow Blade, right? And then it's a +2 weapon, so that's actually really great early on, and there's again no proficiency needed because it's a finesse, works off dexterity and strength. It's a light weapon, it's short sword. Again, it can be dual wielded without any kind of like proficiency, skills, all that stuff. Okay, so what about use cases when it comes to using this Shadow Blade effect on these two weapons, given that Shadow Blade and Knife of the Undermountain are pretty good weapons, right? Well, their attack rolls increase if you were, say, a dual wielder. I have a dual wielding warlock, so I literally have something set up like this. I have my Knife of the Undermountain, my offhand. I have maybe a scimitar, and I could use a Shadow Blade in my main hand. So for dual wielding, just by having only one of these weapons have the Shadow Blade effect, both weapons are getting the increase to accuracy or attack rolls with the advantage, right? Now, there's also offhand utility. So if I've already made an ability or use an action, I can still attack with my offhand on my bonus action and still have really good, accuracy or attack rolls with that, even with the lower dexterity, or if I'm not proficient with it, it still helps out landing another little bonus hit. That's always nice, right? Having more options. Double crossbows, again, like this, I've demonstrated offhand or main hand. If they're in the shadows or not, you don't get it, right? If they're in the shadows, you do get. So it doesn't have to be Knife of the Undermountain or Shadow Blade to get this effect, like I was saying earlier. There's also the caster bonus, okay? And rogue sneak attacks. What I mean by caster bonus is what I was saying earlier. Say I did an Eldritch Blast 1, 2, 3. That's pretty cool because Eldritch Blast also got the advantage on shot. But if I was close enough to come up and make an offhanded bonus attack, which I've done plenty of times in my current run, I can get that sneak attack, or not sneak attack, but that bonus damage in using a bonus attack on my offhand. Especially like, look, life drinker at level 12 warlock has that additional necrotic damage, so I get more usage out of that, even if I'm not like a blade lock or a melee warlock, right? Rogue sneak attack also loves this, obviously, whether it's main hand or offhand, as long as it's a finesse weapon, which both of these are, and you have advantage, which this allows, right? It could be easier for pulling off the conditions, however you want to get your sneak attack, especially if you were doing a ranged sneak attack, right? Because I have advantage, and that's really all you need sometimes to pull off a sneak attack. So that's pretty awesome right there. What about ranged attackers? Well, we already talked about, like I said, rogue sneak attacks from a range. There's Eldritch Blast like I'm using. I'm getting advantage from that. There could be the Scorching Ray spell. You know, maybe you're like a sorcerer. So if you have a sorcerer and you're not necessarily playing with the Shadow Blade, you might want to pick up this spell and use the spell slot so that you have for the entire day the Shadow Blade effect. Otherwise, you might want to equip yourself with the Knife of the Undermountain and get the better critical hit from the Organ Rearranger, right? So again, any kind of spell attack at range is going to have the advantage here. So you can go 1, 2, 3, 4 with this, right? So Scorching Ray builds on Dragon Sorcerers would love this. Eldritch Blast loves this. Formerly on ranged builds, really any build could use this, but because the Risky Ring comes with risk, right? Risky Ring already forces advantage just flat out. And I would use this on my ranged or Eldritch Blast builds, right? Because I really want that accuracy and higher crit chance. It does come with a disadvantage to saving throws, which could get you killed by a slow effect or a hold monster, or just getting hit by a fireball and not dodging it, right? This is a very dangerous ring to use if you're not wary of the disadvantage that's coming with it. Now you don't need that as long as your target is obscured or lightly obscured. You can still get that, and guess what? It now frees up a ring slot. So maybe now you can take something like Ring of Spiteful Thunder, and you can use the Spine Shudder on your Eldritch Blast. I don't think I have it here, but you know what I mean, right? So you have a ring slot added to all these ranged attackers if you know what you're doing and can set up obscured or set shadows down or whatnot, right? So E-Blast, Scorching Ray, bows, dual crossbows like I have here, and then of course melee weapons as a stat stick is a really nice concept in general for like using range bows or Eldritch Blast builds. You can just set this up where, okay, I have actually a shield. There we go. I can have a shield and still have the Knife of the Undermountain. I'm not using any melee attacks. I'm not worried about my bonus action. I just want to get the advantage, right? So this is a common practice for ranged attackers. You use your melee weapons as a stat stick, right? Melee spells can inflict wounds, Shocking Grasp, Haste and Quicken, especially given the new, the new Death Cleric. At level 6, you can ignore necrotic damage resistance. So if you had like a multi-class that could acquire the Shadow Blade or just use the Knife of the Undermountain, you can get a higher crit chance and accuracy against targets in the shadows with Inflict Wounds. And Inflict Wounds is one of the highest damaging spells, especially when it crits, right? Shocking Grasp, you can always double up the damage with this. If you make the target wet, they take double lightning damage, and again, increasing the chance to crit, and then doubling lightning damage. Crazy damage from a cantrip, right? And then Haste and Quicken, the more actions you have, or if you have a sorcerer and you can quicken magic with meta magic, the more you can cast these in a single turn, so further amplifying what you could do with this, right? And then the overall idea here is crit fishing, which is why I saved this last detail on the Knife of the Undermountain. Remember that critting is rolling 2 d20s, and you have to hit a d20 at the highest level, right? You have to hit a 20. 20 will bypass accuracy and attack rolls and just crit and do double up any dice damage would thus be doubled up, right? So on this d10 here, it would actually be a 2d10 rather than a 1d10, okay? Now, you have to hit a 20. Well, you already have better odds if you're using advantage. You take the higher of 2 dice rolls. So if either of the two becomes 20, you already have better chances at critting more often, which is why you saw that earlier, right? But otherwise, if you have Knife of the Undermountain, you get a 2-for-1 special, right? Because now, instead of a 20, you need to only roll a 19 or higher, and these effects do stack. So if you wanted to build for crits, I've done a video on that as well, but Knife of the Undermountain is one of the earliest and best pieces you can use, and now, thanks to fixing the Shadow Blade, thank you, Larian, we now get the full power of this cool, awesome early game weapon, which allows you to fish for crits, as it were, a lot easier just against targets in the shadows, which I gotta say, by Act 2, I was getting advantage all the time, because everything in Act 2 is a bit of a slog in, you know, the darkness. But hey, there's a lot of targets hiding in the shadows all throughout Act 2. And then if you're playing smart in Act 3, you could really, like I said, get the higher crit chance, save yourself a ring, and it works with just about every attack roll. So I figured I'd just drop you that. Like I said, how do you play? Usually I ask, how do you play and level up these builds? Well, come watch me. I'm doing the Oops All Warlocks run. It's a mono run. We're not doing any multi-classes, and I'm now using, and this is where I caught onto this and felt like sharing, but the Shadow Blade is a really powerful effect that I wanted to share with you. 2 of my characters, one is using the Knife of the Undermountain, the other is using the Shadow Blade, and I'm actually using the Shadow Blade on a caster, like I said, as a little offhand utility bonus attack, but I was not realizing both of these is giving me a way better chance at accuracy, even though my characters aren't that built for that position, right? So yeah, just come join us in the streams. You can actually see this in effect, or if you if you missed the stream, you can always check out the playlist I've made using these runs, showing cool stuff off like this in honor mode, all right? And you can always just ask comments and questions if you've noticed anything you want me to cover. I'm now getting back into answering patch 8 questions, and I got a stream in just a little bit, so I'm gonna get out of here, let you to it. But you guys are my sponsor. I appreciate everybody who's been supporting me. I really do. If you've watched the whole video, then I really appreciate you watching. But even if you're just poking your head in and saying, oh, that's a cool detail, thank Thanks for sharing. You're welcome. Because you guys are awesome. If you want to support the channel further, there's also the cheap, lowest as can be, member support, and we'll see about getting some more cool features soon. Little hint there. But otherwise, you have an awesome day, and I'll check you guys out in the next one.